Maya Chen had exactly 47 credits to her name, a broken down shuttle in Repair Bay 6, and absolutely no patience for ancient history. The mechanic's coveralls she wore were stained with 3 different colors of hydraulic fluid, and her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun that had given up on life somewhere around hour 10 of her shift. Gateway Station Alpha was supposed to be a quick stop. Drop off a cargo shipment, refuel, maybe grab something that didn't taste like recycled protein. But her shuttle's cooling system had other plans. 2,000 credits, the station mechanic had said, not even trying to let us smirk. Maybe 3,000 if we find more damage. So here she was, wandering the commercial district with 47 credits and killing time until she could figure out how to convince someone to fix her ship on credit. The massive holographic banner caught her attention mainly because it was blocking her path to what looked like a decent noodle stand. Grand opening, the Valdric collection, it proclaimed in letters that sparkled with unnecessary enthusiasm. Witness the mysteries of the Lost Empire. Maya sighed. Museums were free, and free meant she could save her credits for actual food. Besides, the station's environmental systems were working overtime, and the museum probably had better climate control than the corridors. The Hall of Forgotten Kings, the Galactic Heritage Museum, occupied 3 Empire levels of the station's central hub, all gleaming floors and carefully controlled lighting designed to make everything look impressive. Then it probably was. Maya joined a small crowd filtering through the entrance, past a tall Zenthari curator whose 4 arms gestured enthusiastically at various displays. The Valdric Dominion, the curator, his name tag read Quillix, announced in a reedy voice that echoed off the polished walls, ruled 40% of known space for over 3,000 years, before their mysterious disappearance 15,000 years ago. What you see here represents the most comprehensive collection of Valdric artifacts ever assembled. Maya drifted past displays of ancient weapons that looked more decorative than functional, clothing that seemed designed for beings with too many limbs, and holographic recreations of cities that probably looked better in ruins than they had when occupied. The usual museum stuff. Impressive to people who cared about dead civilizations, mildly interesting to everyone else. The crowd thickened as they approached the central exhibition hall. Maya could hear the murmur of excited voices, the clicking of photo drones, and someone speaking in hushed, reverent tones about unprecedented historical significance. She pushed through the last cluster of onlookers and found herself in a circular chamber. At its center, elevated on a platform of black stone, sat a skull. When the dead remember. It wasn't quite human-shaped, though it was close enough to be unsettling. The bone, if it was bone, had a crystalline quality, seeming to shift between solid white and translucent depending on the angle of the light. Intricate patterns covered its surface, too precise to be natural, too organic to be purely mechanical. The eye sockets were deep and dark, and Maya had the uncomfortable feeling they were looking at something, even though that was impossible. The sovereign skull, Quillix's voice carried across the chamber, thick with pride and poorly concealed anxiety. Worn by the highest rulers of the Valdric Dominion, after 15,000 years of silence, we have finally... The skull moved. It wasn't dramatic. No flash of light, no thunderous sound. It simply rotated on its pedestal with a smooth, deliberate motion of something that had been waiting a very long time to do exactly this. The eye sockets turned toward Maya, and then with the same eerie grace, the skull tilted forward in what could only be described as a bow. The chamber went silent. Not the polite silence of a respectful audience, but the absolute, shocked silence of people whose understanding of reality had just been questioned. Did that just... Someone started. It moved, a Paltharine trader whispered, her bioluminescent patterns flashing in agitation. Maya stood frozen, one hand still raised from when she'd been about to scratch her nose. The skull remained bowed toward her, patient and expectant like a dog waiting for a command. Maya said, which seemed appropriate given the circumstances. Is it supposed to do that? Security protocols and uncomfortable questions. What happened next occurred very quickly. Quillix made a sound like a tea kettle reaching critical pressure. Security alarms began wailing throughout the station. A massive Krovian insecurity armor appeared from nowhere and took up position between Maya and the skull, his weapon drawn but pointed at the floor. Nobody move, the Crothian commanded, his voice carrying the kind of authority that made disobedience feel like a personal failure. Curator Quillix, explain. This isn't... Quillix seemed to have temporarily lost the ability to form complete sentences. His forearms fluttered in distress. The artifact has been completely inert for 15,000 years. We scanned it multiple times. There's no power source, no active technology, nothing that would explain. It bowed to her, the Crothian said flatly, his eyes, all three of them, fixed on Maya. Why? I have no idea, Maya replied honestly. I literally just walked in here. I don't know anything about the Valdric whatevers. I'm a mechanic. I fix cooling systems and occasionally argue with cargo hold doors. I don't do ancient alien artifacts. The Crothian, his badge identified in his Commander Torvik, tapped his communicator. This is Torvik. I need Dr. Vera in the Heritage Museum immediately. And get a containment team here. Nobody leaves this chamber until we understand what just happened. Commander, I really don't think, Maya began. You made a 15,000-year-old artifact move, Torvik interrupted. You're either the most important discovery in xenoarchaeological history or the most dangerous person on this station. Until I know which, you're saying right here. The scientist arrives. Dr. Vera arrived 20 minutes later, moving with the careful precision of someone whose joints had seen too many years and too many planets. She was Tyrellian. Her scaled skin faded to a soft gray green, and she carried a scanner that looked older than Maya's shuttle. One milky eye focused on Maya, while the other examined the skull. Interesting, Dr. Vera murmured, running the scanner over Maya from head to toe. The device beeped and chirped in ways that probably meant something to someone who understood xenogenetics. Very interesting indeed. What's interesting? Maya demanded. The crowd had been evacuated, but she remained in the chamber, surrounded by security personnel who looked like they weren't sure whether to protect her or arrest her. You have Valdric genetic markers, Dr. Vera announced, as casually as if she'd commented on Maya's hair color. I have what now? Valdric DNA. Quite a significant amount, actually. Approximately 8% of your genetic code shows clear Valdric ancestry. Dr. Vera looked up from her scanner, both eyes now focused on Maya. Tell me, Miss Chen, Maya Chen. Tell me, Miss Chen, what do you know about your family history? Not much, Maya admitted. My parents died when I was young, raised by my aunt in the outer colonies. Pretty standard story. Did your family have any unusual characteristics? Exceptional intelligence, longevity, unusual abilities? Maya thought about her grandmother, who had lived to be 147 and had possessed what the family diplomatically called strong intuition, but what was more accurately described as always being right about everything in ways that were statistically impossible. Maybe, Maya said slowly. Dr. Vera nodded, as if this confirmed something. The Valdric didn't go extinct, Miss Chen. They scattered. DNA analysis suggests they integrated with numerous species across multiple worlds, including Earth approximately 14,000 years ago. Most humans carry trace Valdric markers, perhaps 1 or 2%. But you, she gestured at the scanner. You're carrying markers from the Valdric ruling caste. The skull recognized you as royalty. I'm a mechanic, Maya repeated, hearing the slight hysteria creeping into her voice. I'm not royalty. I'm barely employed. Nevertheless, Dr. Vera said gently, the skull disagrees. The collector's interest. The next person to enter the chamber was neither security nor scientist. He was tall and humanoid, with features that seemed to shift depending on the lighting, a trait of the Morphians, who could partially control their physical appearance. He wore clothing that cost more than Maya's shuttle was worth, and carrying himself with the confidence of someone who had never been told no and wouldn't recognize the word if he heard it. I am Sareth Void, he announced, as if the name should mean something. I represent certain interests who have been searching for someone like you for a very long time, Miss Chen. Commander Torvik moved to block his approach. This area is restricted. I have a Class 7 diplomatic clearance, Sareth replied smoothly, producing a holographic credential that made Torvik's expression darken, which grants me access to any public space on this station, including this one. I'm here to make Miss Chen an offer. I'm not interested in offers, Maya said. You haven't heard it yet. The Sareth's smile was pleasant and utterly cold. The Valdric Empire left behind more than museum pieces. They left behind weapons, vast networks of automated defense systems, dormant fleets, technology that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. All of it locked behind genetic security protocols that require Veldrick royal blood line to activate. And you want me to activate them? Maya said flatly. I want to offer you a partnership. Access the systems. Help me secure certain strategic advantages, and I'll be sure you're compensated beyond your wildest dreams. The answer is no. Sareth's smile didn't waver. That's unfortunate. You see, I've already purchased the Veldrick collection from the museum, including the skull. And I've filed the necessary paperwork to claim salvage rights to any Veldrick technology activated by artifacts in my possession. So really, the question isn't whether you'll help me, it's whether you'll do so voluntarily, or whether I'll need to extract the necessary genetic material by force. Commander Torvik's weapon came up. You're threatening a civilian on my station. I'm discussing business opportunities, Sareth corrected. But if you'd like to obstruct a legal salvage operation, I'd be happy to discuss that with station administration. I believe several of them are investors in my ventures. The skull pulsed. Just once, a brief flicker of light deep within the crystalline bone. Maya felt something in her chest respond, a strange resonance, like a tuning fork struck in a room she hadn't known existed. Think about it, Ms. Chen, Sareth said, turning to leave. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, I'll be forced to pursue less pleasant alternatives. The choice of empires, unwanted heritage. Dr. Vera's laboratory was cluttered with the accumulated debris of a 40-year career in xenoarchaeology. Specimens floating in stasis fields, holographic displays showing DNA structures, and enough scanning equipment to outfit a small hospital. Maya sat in the center of it all, feeling distinctly like a specimen herself. The Veldrick weren't conquerors in the traditional sense, Dr. Vera explained, projecting a holographic star map that showed the expansion of the Veldrick dominion in pulsing blue light. They were integrators. They believed that all intelligent life should be unified under a single governance structure, optimized for efficiency and survival. That sounds like conquerors with better PR, Maya muttered. Perhaps, but they didn't destroy the civilizations they absorbed. They modified them. Genetic engineering, cultural integration, technological enhancement. Within 3 generations, conquered populations thought of themselves as Veldrick. Within 5, they couldn't imagine being anything else. That's worse, Maya said quietly. Many scholars agree with you. Dr. Vera zoomed in on a cluster of systems near what was now human space. 15,000 years ago, something changed. The Veldrick Empire, at the height of its power, simply stopped. No collapse, no war, no external threat. The royal family issued one final command: scatter, integrate, forget. Within a century, the Dominion had vanished. Why? No one knows, but I have a theory. Dr. Vera pulled up a new display, showing genetic drift patterns. What if they realized what they were becoming? What if the royal family looked at their empire and understood that efficiency and unity weren't the same as freedom? That optimization wasn't the same as living? Maya studied the patterns, seeing how Veldrick DNA had spread across hundreds of worlds, diluting and mixing until it became invisible, except in people like her, where some random combination of ancestry had preserved enough of the original sequence to trigger recognition. So they committed genetic suicide, Maya said, scattered themselves so thoroughly they'd be absorbed into other species. Or they chose evolution over empire, Dr. Vera suggested. Let their legacy be diversity rather than domination. The siege begins. The alarm started at 0300 station time. Maya jerked awake in the small quarters Commander Torvik had assigned her heart pounding before her conscious mind registered what she was hearing. All personnel, this is Station Command. We have unauthorized docking at ports 7 through 12. Security teams respond immediately. Maya pulled on her clothes and was reaching for the door when it slid open to reveal Torvik, his armor scorched and his expression grim. Sareth Void didn't wait 24 hours, he said. He's brought an army. Mercenaries, combat drones, the works. They've taken the docking levels and they're moving toward the museum. We need to move you somewhere secure. How many people in the station? Maya asked. 42,000. Civilians, mostly. Families, traders, workers. And if I don't cooperate with Sareth? Torvik's silence was answer enough. They ran through corridors, filling with smoke and the sound of distant weapons fire. Dr. Vera met them at an emergency checkpoint, her elderly frame surprisingly quick. The skull, she panted. Sareth has the skull. He's taking it to his ship. Let him have it, Maya said. It's just an artifact. It's not just an artifact, Dr. Vera insisted. It's a command key. With your genetic material, even a blood sample, and the skull's interface capability, he can access Valdric military systems across the galaxy. Automated weapons platforms, dormant warships, defense networks that have been sleeping for 15 millennia. He could spark a war that would make the Old Dominion look peaceful. Maya stopped running. How do I stop him? You can't, Torvik said. You're a civilian mechanic, not a soldier. How do I stop him? Maya repeated, looking at Dr. Vera. The old scientist's expression was troubled. The skull responds to Valdric royal authority. If you could establish a direct connection, you could override whatever commands Sereth tries to input. But that would mean touching it, linking with it, experiencing everything it contains. Experiencing what? 15,000 years of memories, commands, the entire history of the Dominion's military operations. It's a database, but it's also a consciousness of sorts. Artificial, but aware. Most beings who've tried to interface with Valdric technology without the proper genetic markers died. Even with them, she trailed off. Even with them, it might drive me insane, Maya finished. Got it. Where's his ship? The command interface. Sereth's vessel occupied Docking Bay 3, a sleek destroyer-class ship that screamed wealth and violence in equal measure. Getting inside involved a combination of Torvik's security overrides, Maya's knowledge of universal maintenance access points, and Dr. Vera's stubborn refusal to stay behind despite being older than most stars. They found Sereth in what appeared to be a converted cargo hold, now outfitted with medical equipment and scanning arrays. The sovereign skull sat in the center of it all, connected to machines by cables that seemed to merge with the crystalline bone. Ms. Chen, Sereth greeted her without surprise. I'm disappointed. I gave you a choice. You gave me an ultimatum, Maya corrected. Here's a difference. Semantics. Now I can do this the easy way. You provide a blood sample voluntarily or the hard way. Either works for me. Torvik's weapon was aimed at Sereth's head. Step away from the artifact. Commander, don't be tedious. I have 40 mercenaries on this station and control of life support to 3 residential sectors. Shoot me and thousands die. Is one stubborn mechanic worth that? Maya looked at the skull. Even disconnected from her, she could feel it. A presence at the edge of her consciousness, patient and waiting. The patterns on its surface seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. Dr. Vera, she said quietly, if I connect with it, can I send commands? Theoretically, yes. But yes or no? Yes. Maya walked forward before she could reconsider. Sereth moved to block her, but she was faster, driven by something between determination and desperation. Her hands closed on the crystalline bone, and the universe exploded. The weight of empires? Maya experienced 15,000 years in 15 seconds. She felt the rise of the Valdric Dominion, the careful integration of species after species, the optimization of society into something efficient and soulless. She felt the pride of the rulers who believed they were bringing order to chaos, and the growing horror as they realized they were creating a cage. She saw the last empress, her own ancestor 30 generations removed, making the hardest choice any ruler had ever made. Not to fight and die gloriously, but to surrender and scatter, to let her people become something else, something smaller but freer. The military systems were there, vast and sleeping, weapons platforms in dead orbits, automated fleets waiting for commands, defense networks that could burn worlds. All of it waiting for someone with royal blood to wake them up and start the cycle again. Maya could feel Sereth trying to interface through his machines, trying to access the systems through her involuntary connection. She could feel the skull responding to the genetic markers in her cells, preparing to obey. No, Maya said, and the word echoed through the command network like thunder. She understood now what the last Empress had done. Not destroyed the weapons, destruction could be undone, technology recovered. She had locked them behind the one thing that couldn't be forced or faked: choice. The systems would obey royal blood, yes, but only if that royal blood chose to command. And Maya Chen, mechanic and accidental heir to an empire she'd never wanted, chose to finish what her ancestor had started. Authorization code, she said, the words coming from somewhere deep in her genetic memory. Sovereign bloodline, final command. All systems, permanent deactivation. No override, No reactivation, no war. The skull blazed with light, brilliant and blinding. Across the galaxy, on dead worlds and in forgotten orbits, weapons that had slept for 15 millennia woke just long enough to understand their final command. Then they died, truly and permanently, systems corrupting themselves beyond any hope of recovery. Sareth screamed, a sound of pure fury. "What have you done?" "What my ancestors should have done completely," Maya replied, feeling the connection fade as the skull went dark. "I ended it. No more weapons, no more empire, just history. Freedom and consequences." The skull crumbled in her hands, the crystalline structure fracturing into dust, now that it had fulfilled its final purpose. Sareth lunged for her, but Torvik was faster, his massive hand closing on the collector's shoulder with enough force to make bones creak. "You destroyed billions of credits worth of salvage," Sareth snarled. "I'll sue you for everything you have." "I have 47 credits and a broken shuttle," Maya replied. "Good luck with that." Station security arrived in force, and Sareth's mercenaries, finding themselves employed by a man with no leverage and no pay, surrendered without much fight. The residential sectors were restored to normal operation. The museum reopened 3 days later with a new exhibit about the final end of the Valdric Dominion. Maya stood in front of it, looking at the holographic recreation of the sovereign's skull before it had crumbled. "Regrets?" Dr. Vera asked, joining her. "About destroying weapons that could have started a war?" "No," Maya paused. "About being descended from people who thought they could optimize freedom away? Maybe a little. If it helps, they learned. Your ancestor learned, and she made sure the lesson would last. By hiding it in our DNA until someone like me stumbled into it." Maya shook her head. "That's a hell of a legacy." "All legacies are heavy," Dr. Vera said. "The question is what you do with the weight." Maya's shuttle was repaired, apparently being the person who saved the station from a potential interstellar incident, and with perks like free maintenance. She said goodbye to Dr. Vera, nodded to Commander Torvik, and headed for the docking bays. The universe was full of dead empires and forgotten kings, but it was also full of people making their own choices, writing their own stories, refusing to let the past dictate the future. Maya Chen, mechanic and accidental empress, chose to fix cooling systems and argue with cargo hold doors. It wasn't glorious, but it was free. And freedom, she'd learned, was worth more than any empire.